Hello and welcome to Steptoe Son, a podcast based at Mews Cottage, 26A, Aldrum Lane, Shepherd's Bush. This is the home of the world's most famous rag and bone men, or as Harold would say,
Salvage Recovery Operative.
My name is Darren.
And I'm his co-host Si, also known as Two of the Three Convenios podcast that we co-host along with the amazing Tom from One Foot in the Podcast. You might also know me from Don't Forget Your Goodbye Gherkins, the Men Behaving Badly rewatch podcast, all things MBB related.
I've also been previously a guest on the Jolly Boys podcast, all things Only Fools and Horses. As you've guessed it, our favourite sitcom is Steptoe Son. The show ran for 8 series on BBC from 1962 to 1974 and even spawned 2 feature films. Such was the series' popularity in the mid-1960s that the cast specially recorded several episodes for BBC Radio.
In the year 2000, the show was ranked number 44 on the 100 greatest British television programmes compiled by the British Film Institute. The 2001 Channel 4 poll, Albert was ranked 39th on their list of the 100 greatest TV characters.
We plan to review episodes, chat to fans of the show, and maybe even chuck in the odd quiz. We hope you enjoy listening. Please check out the pod on Spotify, Insta, Twitter, and all other platforms. Hi everyone, this is Darren. Thanks for downloading and listening to the latest episode of Steptoe Son. I'd like to introduce a very special guest tonight. She's an actress of films, stage and TV. She's also an accomplished author of many children's books, as well as the Harry H Corbett book, Front Legs of the Cow. I'd like to introduce Susannah Corbett.
Hello, is this Darren or Si?
Hi, Sue, this is Darren. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm fine, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you though.
There's a good reason for that.
Oh, so yeah, thanks for doing the podcast. Sue, you're an
That's
absolute
okay.
star for doing that. I've got to apologise. Si can't make it tonight. He's gone away with family.
Oh, lovely. Anywhere nice?
Well, before you ask, it's not Bognor. No, I think he's gone. I think it's Hull way he's gone because he's from sort of Sheffield area.
The north.
But yeah, so he does apologise. But he's given me a couple of questions to ask anyway. So
Righto, fire away. Hopefully I can answer them.
yeah, no worries. How are you doing anyway? Did you say you'd gone away? How's your summer going?
Yes, not bad, you know. Going far too quickly.
Yeah, it is. Especially with the kids off on holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. I just thought, I don't know if you're sort of that aware of our podcast, or do you listen to podcasts yourself at all? Or?
I don't. I did listen to yours, but I don't. I'm not a podcast devotee, shall we say.
No. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, thanks for listening to ours. That's
all right.
Excellent to hear. Any opinions?
You're not crazy, so that's good.
I think that's a matter of opinion. Yeah, so I've got a few questions. I'm sort of, obviously myself and Si were massive Steptoe fans, obviously, and fans of yourself and your work. So we thought it'd be great to get you on. So we just wanted to ask a few questions like, are there any other actors or actresses who have sort of influenced you or your style of acting?
Well, my mother.
I was going to say, your mother was she trained at RADA?
She was an actor herself. And then when she and Dad got pregnant and have families, it was easier just to keep one in the game and one running the house. And as he was doing quite all right.
Yeah.
I think they were, we'll just keep you in the game and I'll deal with the house. But obviously she was an actor herself, and I learned a lot from her as well. I mean, I learned from Dad simply by I think my brother and I learned how to read by running the lines with him. When he was rehearsing and trying to learn lines. We would often do that. So but yeah, obviously one's influenced by the actors that you know best, and in my case it was my parents.
Certainly, yeah. Do you know what I was reading in the book, the excellent book, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm going to add your children's books as well. I bought Dragon's Dinner.
Oh, right.
As well.
You.
Yeah, okay. No, I posted it to Si because sadly my kids are sort of a bit older now. They're 14 and 12, so they've moved on.
I like rhyming books, so there we go.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Yeah, so I was going to say it's incredible, really. Sort of learned to read with your dad, narrating the the
Yeah, and
Steptoe
also
scripts, do
our bedtime. Do you know of a man called Alan Corran, who was a satirist, and he was on Call My Bluff and stuff like that
Oh, right,
a
okay,
while
yeah,
ago. I believe his
yeah,
daughter does. Oh, I can't remember the name of the game show that she does. But anyway, incredibly witty guy, funny
yeah.
man, and he wrote short, funny stories and would have them in collections of books, and that was our bedtime reading. They would
Oh,
read
okay.
these short satirical stories. Our vocabulary was excellent
Yeah, oh, it
on
must have been,
arriving at
yeah.
school, shall we say. Couldn't spell it, but man, we knew
That's
it.
no, I'd imagine, especially having sort of both parents as trained actors.
Yeah, but I tell
Um,
you, the bedtime stories was something else. It was only
oh,
when you uh, realized that that was not normal to have such such exciting bedtime
yeah,
stories, and also just normal kid stories. He especially would do with great voices, and
yeah.
make them silly, and great guy, great dad.
Oh, I can only imagine because obviously reading about your childhood was so it seems so idyllic and it seems so like I said you tour in Australia and I didn't realize
Yeah.
Harry was such a fan of Australia. He wanted to move there. Was
Oh,
that?
he loved it. Yeah,
Mm,
we loved it. It was fantastic. But
mm,
I mean, he went back several times and as much as he could, and was planning to again. Just before he died, he and Wilfrid were planning to go back
mm.
and do another tour. But obviously, he didn't make it. So
Yeah, that's it. I imagine it was a hell of a journey and well, it is now, but sort of back then,
yeah.
not an easy
Well,
traveling
I think
journey.
he took a stopover in Singapore and places like that. So
Yeah.
too onerous.
Yeah, I'm just reading as well that you also was it St. John's Wood you grew up in?
Yep, yep. St. John's Wood.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
just
it's
seems
changed a lot now, but back then, London was still sort of a collection of villages, as it were.
yeah.
If you know what I mean, everywhere had its own particular identity, whereas now I think it's a bit more, universal London. London, innit? Um,
Yeah, that's a good accent. Yeah, because the bit about the was it you had a dog called Jude or
yeah,
Judy,
Judy.
and
Judy. Oh,
and
yeah, the family joke was that's where Paul McCartney, because he lived a few doors down. That's where he got the title from. Us shouting at the dog.
the Hey Jude, yeah, that's
Don't come in.
if true, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Your dad reading scripts to you.
Hmm.
As I said, like I was talking, it's like obviously Si's a massive fan as well of yourself and Harry H Corbett. And one of the things we love about the way he sort of portrayed the character of Harold,
Hmm.
he would sort of go off on these like quite childlike flights of fancy, wouldn't he?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it sort of like he blended like a naive sort of view of the world, um, in a man who is he was portraying a 39-year-old.
Mm. But
But I can
that's
imagine,
and therein lied the pathos of the piece. I mean, that's where Ray and Alan were so exceptionally talented. Um, and I mean, obviously, Wilfrid and Dad knew what they were doing, but it starts with the writing, and you couldn't get away that they were geniuses.
definitely, yeah, because I mean they sort of looked at the actors as well, and there's quite a lot of politics in the book as well, and about
Well,
obviously
they
you
were all
got
from that sort of ilk. Well, Dad
yeah, definitely.
and Ray and Alan especially had been. I think Dad had the roughest upbringing, shall we say, or the poorest at least. I'm not too sure. I'm not too um, hot on Wilfrid's upbringing. I don't know. Whether he was dragged up or had very nice to do. I don't know. But they knew these people. They knew, sort of. Well, the dad character was a staunch Tory, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Harold was a rampant socialist. But at a time when we had a need for socialism, we had a need for
Mm.
welfare state. We had, it wasn't cradle to grave care.
No.
Um, so that's why it was all. Dad's favorite line out of the entire series was, "I didn't get rickets through overeating." I
That
mean,
is a
that just
brilliant
it
line.
spoke to
Yeah.
him, because he knew kids growing up that obviously did get rickets.
Yeah.
He knew those people, and he campaigned for Labour when it
Yeah,
was
that's true.
fashionable to do so. I think he was one of the first celebs to say, get out and vote.
I think in the book you say he did a bit of a sort of a Tony Blair at one point, a bit like the sort of mid-90s, and when New Labour came in, they became very popular and ingratiated themselves with pop stars and that sort of thing,
Hmm.
and celebrities, lending their name to the Labour parties. But I mean, your dad was doing that. What in
Yeah, well, I think he believed in old Labour. I don't know what he would have
Yeah.
made of New Labour, but he believed in old Labour. And as I say, at that time in history, there was a need for them.
Yeah, so the first question from Sally was going to ask was, how did your dad find working with Galtman Simpson? Was there much room for altering or adding to the script? And did he suggest ideas for stories?
Loved them. A little wiggle room, I don't know. When he first got the script, he was in Bristol. Oh God, what was he doing? I think it was Macbeth. And the script came down to him, and he wired back. He telegrammed, sent them a telegram saying, "Delicious, delightful, cannot wait to work on it." So he
Yeah,
thought the offer was fantastic, and then it was an instant hit, and everybody loved it, and they repeated it immediately, and everyone loved it again, and so they commissioned a series, and because the writing was excellent. I think towards
yeah.
the end, when they were dressing up in ladies' clothing, I think he thought that was perhaps not as
Yeah,
not as pure as it could be. But
yeah. Do you know what? I do
um
love that episode. I think it's
oh, it's
PAYE
hilarious.
later.
They're
Yeah,
hilarious. They're all
yeah.
hilarious. But don't forget, do you know anything about Theatre Workshop?
Only from your book, actually. Not a
Okay, well,
great deal,
that's
but
where
yeah,
he kind of fell into acting.
yeah,
He was in repertory theatre in Chawton,
yeah,
and went along to this new avant-garde, shall we say, theatre group, and got in with them and toured with them. They were very, oh yeah, let's bring it to the people. Before, in a time when theatre wasn't really being brought to the working classes, and
yeah.
so it was all very much indoctrinated in his youth to the working classes rule.
Yeah, because I mean, he's often referred to as, his method style of acting was the British Marlon Brando, which you probably
Yeah.
heard so many times, didn't you?
Yes.
But, but yeah, I do think it's true. I mean, I don't know what he sort of made of that.
Well, it's
Whether
only
he,
because he was a method actor, and
mm,
he wanted to know, he would try and investigate what made these people tick. He was always people watching, because you never know when you're going to use them,
mm,
vampire like as a character.
picking up bits, I suppose,
And
from
but
different
method
people.
acting is what everybody does now. It's what
Yeah.
everyone does. Um, it's what is universally taught in every drama school and university drama course that there is. It's method acting. That's what they teach. But back then it was a new and exciting way of doing it,
Mm.
where you didn't just learn the lines and go and fiddle with the aspidistra. Do you know what I mean? And as
Yeah.
he said, all the maids had adenoids. It was like, "How shall I do your room now, sir?" Do you know what I mean? They all talk like that, and it's like I've never met anyone that actually spoke like that. So,
Uh,
it was all like the Ealing comedies, which were great, but it wasn't reflective. This is he got. I'm talking before kitchen sink drama,
yeah.
before the angry young man, before Look Back in Anger and Osborne and all of that. So they were kind of ahead of the curve, shall we say?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's hard to sort of imagine how different it must have been there when he started out, especially around the, what was it, 62 with Steptoe. And the contrast between his style of acting and Wilfred's,
Yeah, well,
which is a bit more the sort of
because
classical.
as Dad was kind of at the cutting edge of that style of working coming in, that it was only like the late 50s. And obviously Wilfrid being, I don't know how much older he was than him, about 15 years,
He
about
was
15 years, I think,
I
something
said,
like that.
yeah, just I think it was, yeah, just shorter than that, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising, how close
yeah.
they were in age. Um, but Wilfrid came up through, oh God, what's that theatre called in Ireland? Urgh.
Oh,
Oh God.
is it
Oh,
is a great book by David Clayton,
yeah, bring up his
Wilfrid
name.
Brambell, which
But
is
he would have had a much more classical, sort
mm,
of refined approach. Was it the Abbey? I think. I can't remember. And so they just had a different way of working, but the result was
Yeah.
gold from both of them. It's pure gold, and then they worked very well together. It didn't matter that they had a different approach.
No.
It's just, because what went on the screen was hilarious and truthful.
Yeah, I mean I think that the style sort of, yeah, when you watch it, because like I say, I always say that it was the start really of a British sitcom.
Yeah,
Where
I think
they
it's
used.
regarded as the first
Mm.
sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, there's similar things with Hancock, obviously, before it, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah, but that was always
yeah,
Hancock. That
yeah,
was
that's it.
Hancock. I mean, yes, it was situation comedy, but it was
Mm.
it was Hancock playing himself, and Sid was there. This is the first time I think that they got actors
Yeah,
in,
certainly.
actors in, not comics, actors
Mm.
to play in comedic a situation comedy. Um, which is it was weird because they were a bit of a crossover, weren't they? Everyone thought, oh,
Yeah,
they must be comedians. They weren't. They're actors. I mean,
yeah,
everyone
brilliant.
was always expecting Dad to be very funny.
Yeah, because I think you
He
say,
was a funny guy, but it was like, I'm not a comedian.
yeah, I think you say he's often referred to as quite sort of shy and quite
Yeah, he
an
was shy,
introvert.
but then I think a lot of actors are very
Mm.
shy people. Otherwise, why would they want to dress up and be somebody else?
And it-
So as a breed, most actors are fairly shy,
yeah,
and just find an expression and a comfort on the stage being someone else. Um,
so they get to live out the sort of the extrovert side of themselves on stage, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
you do
suppose it's like professional phone voice,
yeah. Yeah.
So
You did that as well, didn't
taking the
he?
phone voice to the nth degree.
Didn't he have a phone persona, not just a phone voice? I think
Yes. Yeah, but everyone has a phone persona,
yeah,
don't you? And I
yeah.
actually I can remember Dad doing it. A massive mug of tea, phone in one hand, big cough, big sigh, right, and then hello, darling. And then he was gonna call people
Yeah.
darling at home. It was just when you go actor laddie, because that's what one thought that's how one ought to behave.
It's a lot like the episode of Star is Born, with
Yes. Oh, but
Albert saying,
obviously,
"Hello, darling. How's your
hello,
Hamlet,
darling.
darling?" It's a bit
Yes, he
like
probably had a lot of fun doing that one because
that.
I'm sure he knew plenty of people like that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Did you say did you go to any of the rehearsals of the shows when you were younger, or perhaps even the recordings? Because I think
I went to the
that-
recordings. I didn't go to the rehearsals.
no, was it
Because they were in some
Divi-
like scout hut, I think, somewhere,
oh,
some village hall that they took
God,
over for a week.
that's
And
incredible to
and don't
think
forget,
of
it didn't take very long because there was only, I don't know, what is it, 6 episodes or so, 6, 7, something like that.
for
Uh,
series. Yeah,
yeah, and so that's not a big chunk out of the year.
no,
So yeah, I mean, I went to recordings. I can remember being at I can remember it was more getting into the BBC.
yeah, it was a bit of
God.
a task to get in
I
there, wasn't it? I think I remember reading at one point you said it was a bit of a task to sort of get into the
Yes, yes,
BBC
the
studios.
officious little twerp on the gate. We turned up, Mum and my brother and myself. We turned up, and I mean, obviously one doesn't remember a lot about one childhood, but that's stuck in the mind. Being
Yeah,
refused entry, and my mother going, "Well, if you don't let us in, he's not going to go on," which was absolute lie, because of course he would have gone on, but he wouldn't have been pleased. But he let us in the end, and so we were able to go up to the green room, and yeah, we're here, on you go.
yeah. So I think it's was it Divided We Stand? You went to the recording of the episode, where they
Yeah,
decided to divide
yeah,
up the house and
everyone
have
loves Divided We Stand.
separate. Yeah,
Yeah.
that, and I think the Desperate Hours for me.
Yes, that's really good. He really enjoyed the Desperate Hours, I think. I think he really enjoyed Lola Broster, who also knew what he was doing. So yeah, that was a lot of
Definitely. I mean, you can see him,
it was
really
brilliant.
going for
Yeah,
it in that
yeah.
episode. Yeah,
The pair
yeah,
of them, I think, are having a lot of fun doing that.
definitely. Yeah. On that sort of subject, so I was going to ask, have you got a favorite episode of Steptoe or?
I think
Um,
Divided. I think I quite like that one.
I think because we reviewed a lot of the earlier episodes. We started off doing 2 episodes from each series,
Hmm.
then we did the films. But I
Yeah.
think in a lot of the sort of the earlier episodes, there's a lot more sort of pathos, and a lot of it is
Yeah.
almost not comedy.
No,
You
it's
know,
not comedy. It's a tragicomedy, isn't it? Especially The Offer and earlier ones. I mean, sometimes, as a kid, they were a bit hard to watch. It's like, damn it, Dad's losing again. But no, that's why I quite like the one where he finally gets to go away to Bognor with the
yeah,
dolly
the
bird.
the twisted, yeah, that's brilliant.
At the very end, I'm like, I got rid of
He's
him.
finally got. Would he watch it himself, or would he?
No,
Not?
I think he would watch it through a crack in the door. Yeah, we'd all pile on to, on the sofa in the bed, and he'd be behind the door jamb going, oh, is it all right? Oh, is it all right?
God, that's
Because I mean, he
he-
was surprised when he first turned up, because when they first rehearsed The Offer, um, he thought it would just be like a normal television film drama thing,
yeah,
and he didn't know there was going to be an audience. So,
yeah,
and Ray and Alan used to talk about this and say that, when he said there'll be an audience, well, I'm going to have to rethink my entire piece, the
okay.
entire performance. And
Yeah,
they
I think
didn't
he's
understand why.
no.
It's like, oh, we've got a real actor here, they were
Yeah,
saying.
they thought, oh God,
But
yeah,
but it is because with a live audience is incredibly different to work with,
yeah,
and uh, you're playing for the cameras, but you're also playing for the live audience, and knowing that there's going to be real people there, you're going to get real laughter, and so you have to time for that,
absolutely.
So that's what he meant. But because they'd only ever worked with comics, they didn't really
No,
understand that there was a choice of how to play it.
I mean it's like the pauses as well. You see it in other comedies where a laugh will be over the line,
Yeah,
as they're saying it, whereas that they'll know when to pause, laugh, and then say the next line.
yeah.
But are you like that with your own work? Are you happy watching it, or do you try and avoid it?
Well, I don't know. No, I watch my own stuff, and just to make sure that I'm getting across what I hoped I was getting across. Once you've been around the block a few times, you no longer sit there going, "Oh my God, do I look like that? Do I
Yeah,
sound like that?" You get over that fairly early on,
it's just okay.
because you are trying to be somebody else, aren't you? So,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I reached out to a couple of our listeners, and
Mhm.
they asked a couple of questions.
Yes,
So bear with me. Yeah, with one of our listeners, so it's at Stu Bailey,
hi
um,
Stu.
and he said, "Could you ask her, Sue,
Yeah,
if you ever met Wilfrid Brambell or anybody else that were in episodes or in the films?"
yes, of course
Um,
I met Wilfrid.
he says he remembers watching Grundy as a youngster with his dad, and having watched it as he's aged, he thought it was very
Grundy,
interesting portrayal of both characters.
God. Yes, of course I knew Wilfrid. We were on tour in Australia with him, so we were staying at the same hotels and would see him, like morning Wilfrid, and all of that. Yes, and Ray and Alan, yeah, I knew them all. I I don't really remember anyone else. After I was quite young when that was going on, so I don't really remember anyone else from that would have
Yeah,
been in the series. I mean, I might
no,
have
no.
met them later and gone, "Yeah, my dad worked with you," but I don't remember them at the time. But of course, I remember Wilfrid, because I would, after the show had taped, you go up to the BBC club, which sounds far more glamorous than it is.
It sounds
Um,
very glamorous, that,
yeah, it is not
yeah.
glamorous at all.
The Beeb.
And they'd be having a drink after the taping of the show, and then all right, oh, I'll see you Monday. So but Wilfrid was hilarious,
Yeah,
because you just didn't recognize him. He'd have the different teeth in,
yeah.
and he'd be so dapper. I mean, my God, he was practically glowing. His pink skin all fresh and scrubbed and shaved and everything, with the cravat and the whole bit. I mean, he looked immaculate, and you do think, "Who are you?"
Yeah, I
Whereas
know.
Dad often would dress better
Yeah.
instead. Well, at least it wasn't clashing. He had an eclectic sense of fashion.
Yeah,
But
God.
yeah, so Dad often did look like an unmade bed, which was quite hilarious.
I
Um,
love that
yeah.
analogy.
So
So I think there is a story of how Wilfrid, uh, he basically the security didn't recognize him.
no,
He turned up in a top hat, very smart suit, different teeth. And then
Yes.
they'd ring up and say, there's a man on reception saying
Yes.
he's
That's
Wilfrid
right.
Brambell.
Ray and Alan would have to let him in. Yeah, no, that is him. No, I can
Yeah.
believe it. Because he did look so different.
Yeah,
Um,
because I think the episode, The Bonds That Bind Us, that's when it really shocked me, and like just the total difference in him. I think they come into some money, and so he'd gone and had a Turkish shave, he'd had his haircut,
mm,
brand spanking new suit, and it was
mm.
just different to the usual sort of scruffy character that you see.
Yes, yes, that was much more Wilfrid.
And then I've also got the last question from Mr. CBB. It's a voice note, so I'm going to try and play this to you, Sue.
Okay.
Hopefully you can hear this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. The first one's from Gemma.
Oh, God. Okay. Hello. My question is, did they both get on during rehearsals, and also when they were like professionally as well? Because some people are saying no and some people are saying yes. So I'd like to know that. Thank you very much.
And do I look like Steptoe? Hello? Hello?
Yes, very good. Yes.
I do hope you could see that then, Sue.
I could see that. Yes,
Brilliant.
yes, very good impression. Did they get on professionally? Yes, they did. They would turn up. They were incredibly different people. Chalk and cheese. You couldn't have found two different, more different people. But you turn up, you do the work, and you go home. I mean, they didn't hang out together, but they just turned up and did the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if anyone has people that they work with, I'm sure that you can get on perfectly well at work. You might be irritated by them sometimes, but you don't hate them. So I don't know why that's said often. I mean, they didn't hang out together. What can I tell you? They were two very different people, had very different interests, had nothing in common outside of work. And would just do their own thing. Meet up once a year for the taping. All right, hello, how are you? Yes. Work together, go for a drink afterwards. Oh, I'll see you whenever. See you on the next one. Well, that's about it, really.
Yeah, because I suppose they worked together for so long as well, off and on, didn't they? Over,
they
probably best
did.
part of 2 decades. So
yeah, and they were very, very different.
Yeah.
Is all I can tell you. I'm sure that people have people that they work with that they wouldn't necessarily hang out with.
Mhm.
That they wouldn't
Certainly.
go, yeah, let's go for a meal. And most people that I have worked with, I wouldn't hang out with. But
Yeah.
but they're perfectly fine on set.
Yeah.
You just get on with it. Don't you? You get on with it. You try and make the best job that you can of the work that you're doing. And if you happen to get on well with them, great. If you don't, well, frankly, it doesn't matter. It's the work that matters.
Yeah, let the work speak for itself, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, it does sort of annoy me a bit, this persistent rumor that they never got on, because we talked about it previously, and myself and Si, and I always say they couldn't have hated each other at all. You can't work with somebody that long.
Well, I
And
always say, and I think it's because of the last Australian tour that they did that people go, oh, they hated each other, and it's like, well, no. Oh, they didn't come back on the same flight. Well, they couldn't. Dad was going to London, and
Yeah.
I think Wilfrid was going to Singapore to see some friends, and they were going to go back.
Yeah,
Is all I can tell you. They were going to go do it again. So if they were signing up to do it yet again,
yeah, it must have gone
couldn't
well.
have been that bad.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And I certainly don't remember any kind of knockdown, drag out fights or anything like that. It was just we just turn up, do the work, go home, like
That's it.
everybody else.
Yeah, that's it. I think speaking of the Australian tour, was there I don't know if you can remember the incident. Is it with Wilfrid when there was a rather drunken Australian woman
Yes,
that came near the
she
stage?
was so drunk. She was. Oh my God, it was fairly hilarious, but then outrageously, he did kind of shove her away, and she kind of fell over it. Oh my God. Yeah, so that was not his finest moment.
No, I think did you
But
say
in
he
his
sort of
defense, she was a very large lady and Wilfred was
right?
fairly diminutive.
If anything, I would have loved to see that. So did he sort of kick
I
her away?
can't remember. All I can remember is that
Yeah.
Wilfrid was near her and she was bearing down on him, and then suddenly she
Okay.
wasn't there anymore, but just sort of going backwards somewhat.
And I think Harry came to the rescue.
Yes, and then Dad went. I don't remember what he said, but he jumped down into the audience to pick her up. It's like, oh my God! So yes.
God.
Yeah, so Wilfrid could be a little testy.
Yeah. So yeah. Another question I've got, Sue, is would the show still be relevant today in your view?
No, not socially, it wouldn't. Don't you think? I mean, I can't see that it
No.
would be. Everything's changed. It's
It's
50 years old. Of course, everything has changed. Also, I don't think you'd be allowed to make it today.
no, it's possibly true. I think, like politically, it's quite a similar climate when, the election this year, and there's quite a few things that are similar. But as you say, yeah,
Yeah, but they say things on Steptoe that you couldn't possibly say today.
no, definitely,
You know what I mean? And that's
yeah,
Ray and Alan's writing, and you just wouldn't be able to
say it now.
say anything like that these days, would you?
No, and it's gone very niche now. Comedy, as it seems to have to fit a certain category.
Mhm.
I mean, the viewing figures, what were they getting? 23 million
Yeah,
for Steptoe at his
something like that,
peak.
something
I
silly.
mean, you wouldn't get half of that now, would you? I mean, even Only Fools and Horses, I think, peaked at 21, I think it was,
I don't
for the
know.
episode Time on Our Hands, I think peaked. But like you wouldn't get anywhere near that now.
No, probably not. But then don't forget that it's a huge split market now, isn't it? I mean, you can download anything you want. There are so many streaming platforms. It's not just the BBC ITV anymore. Yeah, it's BBC ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
You know, there
so
were
many
only three
streaming
channels
platforms.
when they were doing it, and there was no video. You know, so
That's it. Yeah. So many streaming platforms. I think now is too many.
yes, no, I can't cope with more.
So with your father's legacy, which aspect are you most proud of?
In what regard? You mean just the show, or? Ooh.
Yeah, I think anything really. I mean, anything you did
I think he'd
afterwards,
be
and
very flattered that people are still taking an interest. Since he's been dead since 82. It's you know, it's I think he'd be very touched that people still appreciated the work, that there were still people laughing, and he was bringing just a little bit of joy, you know.
yeah,
into
well, a lot,
Yeah, yeah,
a
that
lot even now.
he would have liked that. I mean, there was never. He was a very. He was a very generous person, actually. I mean, I can't remember. It seemed like every weekend during the summer holidays, he'd be opening a fate somewhere. We were
Yeah,
forever a bloody fate again. Because he liked to give back.
yeah,
Um, I think he was somewhat embarrassed because having come from very poor background, to have made it good when so many people that he knew didn't. I think that there was a bit of guilt there. So he did try and give back as much as he could. And the fact that people are still enjoying the work
certainly,
all
yeah.
these years after he died, I think it would be very satisfying to him. It would be like, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's yeah. We had a conversation as well, one of the podcasts that were he still alive now, what he'd be doing. And I think when you look at sort of other actors, say, Ian McKellen or Christopher Lee, the ones that later in life they sort of, with Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, I could see him doing really well. I could see him having a sort of resurgence and
Oh, I imagine so. I mean, he was popular at a time when people were very much pigeonholed into, oh, you are this kind of actor, and so you will do this. Had he lived, I'm sure that he would have had a resurgence, or have kept going. Had he wanted to, he might have wanted to teach. I don't know. I do know that had he lived long enough to see the internet, he may never have left the room.
Yeah.
Because he had a ferocious appetite for knowledge, information. I mean, he used to buy all the Sunday papers and would
Yeah.
sit there surrounding him. You couldn't see the carpet for all the papers around him. And so we
Yeah.
would have had to surgically remove him from the internet, I think, just so that he could say, oh, that's fascinating. Oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? Oh.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, with the I suppose, what was it like? I suppose, like when you say he was reading the papers. I mean, would stuff about himself, would that sort of make him think, oh God, would he sort of
Well, I
cringe
don't
a
think he
bit, or
read
would
about
he?
himself.
No, no. But I
I mean,
imagine he was, with that sort of at the height of his fame.
yeah,
I mean, I always wondered what that was like. It's hard to explain to people how big the
how
show
famous he
was.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, even with
He
Wilfrid
invested a
Brambell when
lot
he
in hats and sunglasses, I can tell you that.
did it,
Well,
and
because
wigs.
it was so hard. It was quite
Yeah,
hard to walk down the street without people, stopping him in the street. And he'd always stop and chat. I mean,
yeah,
you could almost play bingo with the various phrases that were going to come up because everyone,
yeah,
to a man, always asked about the horse.
yeah,
Where's the horse? How's the horse? Have you got the horse with you? And then often they would remark that they expected him to be taller
oh,
because
yeah.
acting with Wilfrid, who was very short, I have to admit. And his reply was always, "Yes, I thought you'd be taller," and he would reply, "Yes, so did I."
So did I. Yeah, I
Um,
like that. Yeah,
oh God, yeah. Or
yeah. Except
or there's the classic, "Is it you? No, but I wish I had his money."
yeah,
Um,
I like that.
which
That's a good
which I
response.
always
Yeah,
like that one. But people would come up, and it's just, I mean, going to the park from a child, as I was from a child's point of view, it was bloody irritating sometimes because you've got a finite
I was going
amount
to
of
say,
time.
what was that like, sort of being, because he was very famous, obviously, when you were born.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up with a dad that was so well known? I mean, was it a
Well,
bloody
I
nightmare,
think
or was it?
it was normal. It was
Yeah.
our normal. I mean,
Mm,
I don't know what, if I'd grown up with a dad as the milkman, then I would have thought that was normal.
mm,
That worked in an office, that would be normal. My dad happened to be on stage and on telly. I mean, doesn't everybody? Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? That was my normal. Yes, one did figure out that perhaps it's not quite as normal. Especially when you're trying to get to the playground and there's yet another one.
Yeah.
Come on, we've only got 5 minutes. But no, you always had time for people.
Oh, that's good. I think it does come across. I think you could see, like with the body of work he did, that he never took his upbringing and everything for granted. He knew.
Mm.
I
And
think
he
like,
liked all aspects of the business. I mean, he had
yeah, yeah,
great friends who were a juggling act, and he loved variety. Doing variety shows, he would do summer seasons. In
and panto. I was quite surprised how
Brighton
much
Blood.
panto he did.
Panto, he loved
Yeah,
panto. Well, it's such a pure form
yeah,
of theatre. It really is. I mean, if you can trace our first kind of theatre for us is um church stories, yeah, acted out church stories, so that we knew what the gospels blah 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 are, until the Pope got annoyed at that, and so they weren't allowed to do that anymore. And then there's commedia dell'arte, which is Italian kind of pantomime, and then players just roaming the countryside doing shows. But pantomime is a kind of a pure form of theatre, and it's absolutely brilliant, and it's
yeah,
so hard to do. It's real hard to hold an entire audience in your hand and be bantering with them and giving them a really good time. And he loved it. He
yeah.
absolutely loved it. I loved it too, because it was always like during the Christmas holidays, so I
Christmas
could
time. Yeah.
go backstage. I used to dress him, which was great
Oh,
fun.
okay. Yeah,
And yeah, you'd be there to, backstage waiting for the cow to kick the bucket off the stage so you could catch it and all of that.
yeah,
It was wonderful. And also it was a way for us kids to see him work, to
yeah,
see
yeah,
him do his stuff. We loved panto time. I always remember about you could tell it was getting off of panto time because he would get his juggling clubs out of the cupboard, and he'd stand over the sofa practicing his juggling the whole
yeah.
time, so that he'd do it with a guy called Danny Kay, who's a great guy. They would, yeah, it was just great. It was magical times was doing the pantos.
I was going to say because he worked with so many different people, like with like say for instance Victor Spinetti.
Yeah.
He's
Hmm.
I sort of realised that he's from about I mean he about 10 minutes from where I live, Victor Spinetti, so he's
Hmm.
really well known. And obviously, and growing up as a kid, I remember watching him in an episode of Bottom.
Right.
He played the waiter, so I always wondered who that man was. And then in the book, his name comes up quite a lot.
Yeah, well,
Um,
he was in Theatre Workshop.
yeah, that's it. And with
That's how they knew each other. So
Joan Littlewood,
yeah, Jane Littlewood,
uh,
of course, who was the director of
who's
Theatre Workshop.
who's a very formidable lady.
She was a very formidable lady, but I think she was at a time when ladies were not known for being directors of theatre companies, and so she had to be fairly strident to be heard.
Yeah, that's it.
So she didn't take any crap. Let's put it like
No,
that.
that's it. So, well, the only thing I disagree with her with is that if she'd have had her way, Steptoe, well, wouldn't have been made as it is. Because she obviously did. Was it right?
Yes,
She
but
disagreed
then
with
she
Harry.
did she I don't think she liked anyone going off and
No, no.
doing stuff like that. I mean, there's that wonderful story about Michael Caine, I think it is, who turns up at Theatre Workshop to audition, and she tells him to F off and go and be a film star because you'll never be any bloody good on the stage.
Okay.
You're no use to me. You should F off and be a film star. Though, of course,
Yeah.
she used the full version of F.
Okay. That's it. Did you meet her as well? I'm sure I read in the book you
Yeah,
met
I
her.
worked with her. I worked with her on radio.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Did a radio play with her. So yeah, she was yeah, a nice lady. Well, by then she was a great lady. She was a terrible woman, but great lady.
Okay.
I think you could
That's
put it
good.
like that.
But yeah, no, I
A
think
giant of the stage.
oh, I can imagine,
Yeah.
especially back in the day.
Mm.
Um,
Well, and now, I mean, I think she's now on the A-level course.
oh,
Yeah, she's that good.
but no, that's brilliant. Unless if there's anything you want to ask me about the podcast or anything.
No. As I know nothing about podcasts, it will be a bit of a short conversation.
No, that's
But a
fine. Like I
podcast,
said,
that's nice.
just like I said, we're a sort of free podcast. We've been going since about January. But we sort of started off because last year I did another podcast called The Three Comedos.
Mhm.
And we talk about UK sitcoms, and myself and Si, we would always bring it back to Steptoe. That's when we decided we need to do Steptoe Son podcast. So it came about from that. But no, again, thanks for coming on, Sue. It's been absolutely brilliant talking
That's
to
all
you.
right, my pleasure.
You've been
Yeah,
an
no
absolute
worries.
star. I just want to sort of convey really how much your dad's work even influences people now. As I said, Steptoe is a massive part of my childhood, and still people love it to this day. And we've got your
That's very
dad to
kind.
thank for that.
He'd be very flattered, and that's very kind. And, yeah, makes one proud.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Speak to you again. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye there. Hi, this is Susannah Corbett. Thanks for downloading Step Pod and Son.